I appreciate everyone hanging in to the end to hear kind of our closing remarks. We have two staffers from the White House administration that are here that are going to be giving special remarks and closing remarks. So as we are reaching the end, I am going to just first introduce Melissa Rogers. Melissa Rogers serves as Special Assistant to the President and Executive Director of the White House Office of Faith-Based and Neighborhood Partnerships. She's going to come and give some special remarks.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that, Tiffany, and thank you to all of you for coming for this very important meeting. I want to thank the organizers, of course, my colleagues, Acacia Salati and Ben Odell, and all the people at the Center for Faith-Based and Neighborhood Partnerships, and the other components of HHS who have come together to plan this important gathering, as well as the American Psychological Association for hosting us in this beautiful space and contributing so much to the event. It's been wonderful to be able to sit back in the back. I'm just here for a few minutes, but be able to sit in the back and listen to some of the town hall. These things are so helpful when you all can come together, exchange ideas, and we can plan for the future, get rid of redundancies in our cooperation and explore new opportunities that have been presented so well by various speakers that I've just heard while I've been sitting here today. I want to recognize my colleague, Dr. Baltimore, who is serving on our advisory council, the White House Advisory Council on Faith-Based and Neighborhood Partnerships. He's been hard at work. We've, given him the big bucks, not just kidding, to serve on that council. But I know that it's so great to have him here because of his leadership in many ways, but also because I know he will bring the report back to our council and help us to better understand what happened here and how we can maximize what we've learned through this conference for the remainder of the administration, as well as from far beyond the administration, because I think I speak for all of us who have served as appointees in the Obama administration. These are causes of the heart. They are not going to be things that we are not going to be paying attention to after January 2017. We're going to continue to be invested. We'll be more alongside you than we were. We were working with you, of course, but in a slightly different modality during the administration. But we'll be joining you or rejoining you, as the case may be, and we look forward to putting our our shoulders to the wheel with you in new ways. So I know we have a number of speakers at the end. I only have a few minutes here, but I did want to, of course, to bring you greetings and thanks from the President himself. The President knows about this gathering. We have told him about it. He has taken an interest in this particular issue and actually asked for us to do more in this space, and that's part of the reason that this event was convened today. So he's keenly aware of the challenges that we face in this area, the work that is left to be done, and how sensitive and important this work is, and what a huge role faith and community groups in partnerships with others, somebody mentioned for-profits and governmental leaders, can play in tackling these issues that have too often not gotten all the attention they deserve. So I want to bring you a personal word of thanks from him, and also to tell you that he will be watching as this work develops. I also want to tell you that we're going to be working on these issues until we turn off the lights at the White House. So there's still time for us to do limited, initiatives. And in particular, I was with a group this morning, and I just turned to them and I said, we've got until January on this, our time in office. What can we do to be most helpful to you with the time that remains? And that's a question and an invitation I'd like to extend to you as well. Acacia and Ben have my contact information. You can get it to them. You can get it to me through them. I know that one of our important functions is we played as a convening function to be able to bring you all together. We want to make sure you have every tool that you need to keep coming together, even if we're not the ones that are actually bringing you together. So make sure that we help you with that. feel free to float ideas to us where we can be helpful in this remaining time. And then, I'm increasingly looking forward to the time after public service to think about how we can deploy what we've learned in public service for greater impact outside. So I look forward to thinking with you all about that, and I hope that you will share your invitations with us and your encouragements, knowing the limited time, but that we do want to spend it working as hard as we possibly can and breaking the tape. So without further ado, I just want to say another word of thanks to all of you, to tell you that you can stay in touch with us, and we always welcome your thoughts and ideas, to thank you for the very important work that you're doing in this space, and to say that we will stay in touch and look forward to accomplishing and building on the important work that you all have done, both up to January 2017 and beyond. So thank you so much for the opportunity to be with you today.
Thank you. We're so happy that Melissa Rogers was able to join us today. And we're going to also turn it over to one of her colleagues in the White House administration, David Johns, who formerly served as a senior education policy advisor to the Senate Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions under the leadership of Senator Tom Harkins of Iowa. Before working for the Senate Help Committee under Chairman Harkin, Johns served under the leadership of the late Senator Ted Kennedy. Johns also was a Congressional Black Caucus Foundation Fellow in the office of Congressman Charles Rangel. So we're going to welcome David Johns, who is the Executive Director of the Center on the White House Initiative on Educational Excellence Among African Americans. I said a center, but it's a White House initiative. That's actually a little bit more impressive. So.
At least for 57 more days. How y'all doing? Y'all laugh, but I'm serious. So I know I'm at the end of the program. I will say thank you to the faithful for being here. If your friends laugh, text them and tell them it's about to get real good. I have a little PowerPoint presentation to leverage the space in here. While this comes up, just want to say thank you to my colleague and friend, Casey, as well as to all of you for being in the space. So I'm sure that for many of you, this is the first time you've ever heard of the White House Initiative on Educational Excellence for African Americans. I've spent the last 4 years after having been appointed by our president, Barack Hussein Obama. I say his full name with the weight of the respect that it deserves. He established this initiative to be unapologetic and intentional in closing both opportunity and achievement gaps for African American students. It is worth noting that we are the newest of now 6 total initiatives, the oldest of which is the White House Initiative on Historically Black Colleges and Universities, which was established under Carter. And there are also, again, before this initiative, White House initiatives focused on educational excellence for Hispanics, educational excellence for Asian American Pacific Islanders, educational excellence for Native American, Alaska Native, Native Hawaiians, and then the office that Melissa, my colleague, runs as well, focused on neighborhood and faith-based partnerships. Again, all of those existed prior to this administration. They have all continued regardless of the political party associated with the individual that occupied the Oval Office. However, because we are in strange times and we don't know what he who shall not be named will do, the future of this initiative from a federal perspective is in question. And I say that because as it relates to a lot of the comments and questions that were previously discussed, we still have to ensure that this work continues. So it might not have a White House title in front of it, but the effort of ensuring that we are championing the needs of our most precious resource, our children, will definitely continue. So 2 things I want to say at the outset, and I'm going to disagree with my brother who represents Omega Psi Phi. For those who missed it, I'm a member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, the greatest fraternity known to man. Any indication, just look at our colors. Crimson and cream just go so lovely together. So I will disagree with one thing he said, which is that they're problem children. I operate from the Asa Hilliard School of Thought. I've never met a child in particular, a black child who is not a genius. There's no secret to how we support them. The first thing we do is to acknowledge them as human. And then the second thing we do is to support them with love. So I want to be real clear. We can disagree about it after the presentation. There's no such thing as a problem child. There are children who encounter the problems that adults make. because they're either in the way are not honoring what they need. And this, again, will be the thread that binds this work. So this is a picture from the protest in Baltimore. A lot of the media called it a riot, but it was a protest. And if you pulled out, you would see that this young man, a black boy who probably might be 16 years of age, is literally in front of a firing squad. This is after Freddie Gray was murdered. And the question that I found myself asking, when most people were debating what was going on around him, is what would compel a young man who exists in a point in time in which James Baldwin's sentiment about being black and relatively conscious renders you almost always in a state of rage. There's probably been no time where that's been true. It just sucks to be a black American. It sucks to be a person of color. All of us in this coalition were named by who shall not be named. But it's challenging to live at this point in time. And so I asked myself, what would compel a young man, a black man, knowing that at minimum he could be arrested, at most he could be murdered, to put himself in harm's way, or what one might deem harm's way? And the question that I want us all to ask, and this is to the question of what do we do, how do we anchor this, and who do we do this work for, is our students. And the question that I think we need to grapple with is, are we worthy of our children? And so much of that is ensuring that, one, we are doing the work required to be whole, happy, and healthy for ourselves, but also then to support our children in that as well. I don't know if this video will play, but we have a partnership with the Because of Them We Can campaign. And this is really important for me because often people see black kids as problems before they ever acknowledge them as people. And so it's really important for us to center their experiences.
Because of the three doctors, we can be our brother's keeper, stay focused, and work.
It said, because of the three doctors, we can support our kids. So those who don't know, this is the story of three brothers, figurative, not literal brothers, who made a pact when they were in New Jersey to all become doctors, and they did, right? And so this is a way for me to remind people that all of our babies are born requiring the kind of love and support that we sometimes think babies naturally get, but that is sometimes often preserved for those who are privileged. This is a slide from Instagram. Some of the elders in the room are like, what is Instagram? Ask a young person to teach you. But this is Humans of New York does a lot of inquiry narrative. So they'll post a picture and a conversation that they've had. For those who can't read it, the question is, what's your greatest struggle right now? And the response from these three boys of color in New York City is not being white. And so the thing that's important to acknowledge, that the thing that in my bio is most significant, aside from being a child of God, is that I taught kindergarten and third grade in New York City. And I've had the personal experience of asking kids who have been marginalized and oppressed, kids whose needs are often neglected and ignored, what they want to be when they grow up. And in a space in which privileged kids will imagine the kind of careers that we have, for too many of our kids, the answer is simply they want to be alive. And I want to pause for a second and acknowledge that some of this is literal, right? We talk about the fact that as we debate whether or not Black Lives Matter, there are moments in which kids' lives are literally taken. But this is also figurative. So some of you might recall that within the last 2 weeks, there was a viral video that went around about a teacher in Baltimore, a white woman, who was verbally and physically assaulting her students. Right, and she essentially threw one kid out and said to the rest of them, if you don't get your stuff together, you're going to be essentially nothing more than a nigga who gets shot. Right, this is a teacher. And the thing that I thought about was, one, this clearly wasn't the first time this happened because the kids knew enough to record it. Right, if it were an incident where it was the first time, the kids probably would not have had the time to be responsive in that regard. Right, the second thing is we, absent having evidence, forget that kids go through these experiences every day. And that sometimes on the way to and from schools, our kids experience things that would break the average adult. Then they show up in classes and we ask them, what's wrong with you? Rather than asking them, what's wrong? So we have to think about moments in which we can center the experiences of our babies, right? Babies who, with support, will thrive. This is Corey. Corey is a young man who owns a cookie company in New York City. When asked what makes his cookies special, he said they're all natural and they're made with love. Thessalonica graduated from high school with a community college degree at the age of 16. She, probably bored because the classwork was easy, right? Was not put into classes because she was in trouble or detention. Like, what happened with me, I just talked a whole lot and it just worked out because now I get paid to talk. But she was enrolled in a program where she was able to be dual enrolled, right? And graduated with accelerated coursework. Mosiah Bridges, one of the most sartorially sophisticated young men you'll ever meet, runs a company called Mo's Bows. He's in class right now making more money than a lot of us, right? He is a STEM entrepreneur, which is really important in a world where you talk to kids about what it means to be a STEM entrepreneur. What they think about is, or call to mind, is a white man doing bench work in a lab somewhere, right? Mosiah uses technology to create things, pocket squares, bow ties, right? This is important for us to make these connections. Similarly, this is Michaela. Michaela runs a company called Be Sweet Lemonade. She is the youngest person carried in Whole Foods. She makes lemonade using her grandmother's flaxseed oil recipe. Again, a STEM entrepreneur, somebody who never got a credential, who we would never celebrate as an entrepreneur, but is somebody who has demonstrated the legacy of Black genius that exists in spaces even when it's not acknowledged, right? She takes a portion of the proceeds she makes from selling this lemonade to conserve bees. She's now attempting to engage the new administration, he who shall not be named, in conversations about how it is that she can help to preserve the environment. We got a lot of work to do there. Right? The point here is when you think about our children, and not the ones that I just showed you because I gave you the reasons why you should be celebrating them, what do you see? Do we see them as problems? Do we see them as the manifestations of the narratives that are often told about them, the lies that people tell and what have you believe? Or do you see them as people, whole, healthy, who need to be supported cognitively, socially, and emotionally? What I know is far too often kids are never engaged in these discussions. Right? Whenever the question is, how can we as adults support students? What we do is gather in spaces like this. We think about what it was like way back when we were in school. We then design solutions based on what we think they need based on our experiences and the things that we think they're doing now. We then implement the solutions seldom without ever asking them, baby, what do you need? So we inverted that. We decided to leverage this platform that the president gave us to go around the country and host these things called AFMED summits, where the one rule, it's a non-negotiable, I will argue over it or we will just not do it, is that the only experts who get to sit on the stage in front of the White House seals are our students. Students as young as elementary school age all the way through college, traditional and non-traditional. The one question we ask them everywhere we go, what do you need to feel and be safe, engaged, and supported? Who wants to venture a guess as to what the answer is that always comes up no matter where we are? Love. Right? And not this amorphous thing, it just sounds right. And it's not often just the babies who say it, right? People just think that because I taught kindergarten. No, it's the babies. No, it's grown folks who talk about the love that manifests itself in the kind of relationships that we have in order to be successful. The kind of love that shows up and you fill gaps even when it's inconvenient or uncomfortable for you. They talked about needing and demanding that. This is a video of a young man named Marquise, who I offer as an example because often adults think that young kids are unable to articulate their own needs, to which I say, then what the hell are we doing? Right? If we have not supported our babies in being able to ask critical questions, to be able to say what it is that they need, then we are doing ourselves a disservice. Listen to Marquise.
We need to diversify.
Can we turn this up?
A more diverse government. We need to make sure that people of minority or get a chance to serve on police departments. We also need better educations for the people in North County. That's not being solved. And that's why I'm here today, to tell you that the real issues aren't being solved, that you're paying attention to the wrong things. You're paying attention to the looting and things like that when the real issues aren't being solved. There's a reason why those people are out there. I also want to say that we need to, what I mean by diversifying is where are all the African-American police officers in our community? When we have a majority African-American community and we have majority white police departments, where are all the African-American police officers? And why do we have mostly people of the majority working in our neighborhoods? Why don't we have people that are our color working in our neighborhoods? It's not right that we have people that we can't get a job in our own neighborhoods, that we have people who are white working in our own neighborhoods. It's not right that we can't even get a job in our own neighborhoods. Thank you.
So one of the things I enjoy most about being an elementary school educator is that kids are fearless and at this age don't practice the politics of niceties that get in the way of us asking critical questions like why. Marquise just wants to know why. Why the things around me don't add up. Why is it that the spaces I move through don't feel to be supportive in the way in which I think they should? And to be clear, if anybody ever was wondering if that was him or his mama, he went back and doubled down. What I mean by this is this, and further explained it. And I'm spending time here because if we do nothing else as a community when we think about mental health, we need to center and celebrate the experiences of our babies, and we need to listen with love. Far too often as adults, we listen to respond, to tell kids that it ain't that bad because we had it worse. We play oppression Olympics, not recognizing that nobody wins, right? And we often don't acknowledge that our babies are often trying to make sense of the world around them before we ever want to give them credit for it. My kindergartners had some of the most thoughtful conversations about life, and most people wouldn't think that they were capable of it. Why? Because we don't think that kids that young of an age are making sense of the world. We don't think that they're belonging to communities, virtual or otherwise, and we don't honor and celebrate their experiences. So if nothing else, find an opportunity to sit and have a conversation with a young person. The other thing that I want to disagree with is, in the time that I was in the shared space, we did a lot of gendering and binary conversations. We talked a lot about and made assumptions about the things that boys need and girls need. Let's be clear, there are babies who don't feel comfortable in either of those categories, and we need to be mindful about the need to support them. So we need to do a better job of getting out of the habit of gendering things that don't need to be gendered. All of us have emotions. All of us wake up sometime being tired as hell. Some of us wake up wanting to call out black. That has very little to do with my gender identity or expression. And the faster we can cut through the binaries that we reinforce by doing things like that, the easier it'll be to continue some of this work. This is an example of our effort to try and highlight the importance of intersectional identities, to remind people that some of us show up in different ways, right? So the summit was produced for this first of its kind convening White House Summit on African American LGBTQI youth, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer questioning, intersex. There's also a plus because there are acronyms that keeps changing, right? I heard A for asexual or something else the other day when we did the summit in New York. The goal here was to highlight, for as long as there have been black people, there have been black gay people. Some of them have disabilities and show up in particular ways, so we highlight intersectionality. We center the experiences of young people, and we ask them to make recommendations for the things that adults can do so that they can be supported, right? We also wanted to underscore the consequences of not doing this work. For us, there are significant costs for not acknowledging or addressing the mental health needs of young children, right? This happens in a point in time in which we spend too much time thinking about whether or not they can add and subtract, but not thinking about whether or not they're whole, happy, and healthy, right? They can't show up and take the test if they're hungry, are worried about somebody not having stable housing or employment or having witnessed trauma or abuse, right? So we needed to talk about the consequences of all these things. One of the examples we did was to ask them, what are the things that matter to you most? These are the things they offered. The larger the word, the more people highlighted it. Just want to pause here for a second because especially as we think about what happened on Election Day, there's a correlation between the things that are large. Right? Whole nother conversation on a whole nother day about the significance of this going forward, but we need to be clear about the implications that being raised, gendered, and marginalized in our society has for our children physically, psychologically, socially, and emotionally, right? And we need to provide opportunities for them to be able to talk about it and to make recommendations for how to be supported. Just want to highlight, these are two pictures of the kids, just they channeling their Beyonce, and I was like, y'all not gonna have an epic selfie and I'm not gonna be in it. And then the next one, they literally, this is just ingenuity, had a dance party. This is the Indian Treaty Room for anybody that's been in the EEOB. It's a room that literally overlooks the White House, where the president are. So imagine 100 black queer kids, some of whom have been kicked out of their homes, don't have stable housing, are unable to show up and be celebrated for who they are, just dancing and being themselves. This picture was taken on June 10th. The next day was June 11th. Who remembers what happened on June 11th? Pulse nightclub, the shooting in Orlando, right? And the connection here is the disruption of safe spaces. Too many of our babies don't have spaces where they can simply be and be supported and acquire the skills they need in order to thrive. So these are some of the things that came out of the summit. I think they're applicable no matter the work. We need to create safe spaces that affirm and support the cognitive, social, and emotional development of all of our babies. It's not enough to do with one and not the other. We have to be holistic in our approach. Educators, and specifically those who are charged with doing this work, have to not only expect for kids who are really thoughtful and innovative to show up, but we have to do some of the work too. We need to learn the acronyms. We need to check our own feelings and biases. We need to show up ready to support them and get past the things that otherwise might serve as barriers. And we should not project identities onto them. I get real tired of talking to adults who are just like, I don't understand. It's sometimes not your job to understand. And if you're not understanding inhibits your ability to show up for them, then you might need to move and go someplace else, right? We must be prepared to work through the uncomfortable situations in the interest of students. So this is, again, I'd care less about your own personal religious beliefs. If you show up in spaces where you purport to care about the learning and development of young people, you need to find a way to deal with that so you can meet them where they are. We need to be attentive to the needs of all students, in particular students who have identities that are often neglected and ignored. The month after we produced the White House Summit on LGBTQ youth, we partnered with Becca Coakley and a few other friends to support a summit on African American students with disabilities. Again, to highlight things that are often rendered invisible. And the point here is that we should all seek answers to things that are unclear. We expect young kids to do it. We should do it too. These are things that were added. We recently hosted another version of this summit in New York City. Two things that I think are important. We as adults in this space need to be mindful about how we protect the relationships we have with kids. So one of the things kids talked a lot about is that adults sometimes out them to their parents in the context of sexual identity. So when we think about kids showing up with us and sharing things that they're going through, we need to be mindful about how to respect that relationship when thinking about how to support them in larger villages. And then the last thing on this is that we need to celebrate identities, right? We need to celebrate kids being able to be themselves and be freed from the constraints that might make them think real men don't wear pink, real men don't acknowledge their emotions, real men don't teach kindergarten and all that other crazy stuff, right? We need to highlight examples of people that show up and disrupt these narratives. Two powerful ones that I think are really relevant now. One was mentioned, and it's Kid Cudi. So I tweeted an article that I wrote when Kid Cudi wrote his letter announcing that he was checking himself into a mental health institution, concerning that he then checked himself out within a week. However, it provided us with an opportunity to talk about mental health amongst boys and men of color, right? And more recently, Kanye West has allowed us to have a larger version of that discussion as well. Right, the footnote is that we need to get past only engaging in these moments when there are celebrities that are involved, right? There are so many people who have family members that suffer and struggle in same ways that Kid Cudi and Kanye have, and we don't even engage them in the discussion, right? So we need to think about how it is that we leverage these moments to fuel this movement. A footnote here, however, to my point about moving past the binaries is we sometimes spend a lot of time focused on boys and men of color to the detriment of our sisters, right? And that's especially true when we think about LGBTQ youth and the T. Trans individuals are often neglected and ignored in really extreme ways, right? So one footnote that people now celebrate is that for every one white boy who's suspended or expelled K through 12th grade, the rate is 3 times that for boys and men of color, right? But we miss, because the national narrative is that black women are out here acting like Olivia Pope, saving everybody and their children, right? Y'all are doing well, y'all outstripping us, but the rate is for every one white girl who's suspended or expelled K through 12, who wants to guess? The rate is not 5, it's 6. The rate is 6 times that for black women and girls. So what I think about is hosting a summit at the White House where a young girl was able to say, I'm seen as being strong until it's too much and then I'm offensive and I'm a bitch, right? So there are ways that we have to be thoughtful about how everybody experiences these challenges. The last thing I want to say is that we have an obligation to ensure that all of our babies are able to thrive. The term that somebody used earlier was inner peace, right? This for me is the ability to self-actualize your identity, to show up and be celebrated for who you are. One of the things that I am most proud of is having been tapped to serve our country and this administration to do the thing that I'm purposed to do. Right? Anybody who knows me knows that I show up and I turn on whenever there are opportunities to connect with young people and help them to identify and pursue their passion, right? But the important thing is that we have an obligation and a responsibility to do this for all kids, not just the kids who make it easy for us, right? I would have made it easy for you, right? I would have done backflips down the library stacks while reciting epic sonnets, right? That's not all kids. But I do know, because of the work that I've done, that if supported in meaningful ways, cognitively, socially, and emotionally, all of our babies can thrive. This is a young man who attends a school in Miami that is located behind a housing project that's most notable for producing rappers Trick Daddy and Trina. You ought to know who those are, huh? It's like 5 folks on this side who are like, yeah, Google it. Uncle Luke ran for mayor. So look, there's some redeeming qualities here. Don't listen to the words. So producing Trick Daddy and Trina, and also sending a significant number of black boys to the NFL, right? That's their way out. So when I asked this young man, who if I dunked him in this thing that he's about to explain, he might have been 90 pounds soaking wet, what he was going to do after college, he was talking about, I'm going to play football. right? Because that was his path out, right? But through some sophisticated partnerships, this young man now has a sophisticated understanding of agriculture that is literally transferable around the world.
Hydroponics is hydroponics, which is physically grown by the ammonia of the fish. Nitrite, which turns into nitrate, and that is good for the fishes. It's good for the fish and the plants. And the reason why our water is green because of the algae, so we leave it green like this until it filters out. And the good thing about this system is it's a closed system, so all we have to do is feed it.
So this young man gave me a tour of his campus on prom day, and I told him, I was like, look, you already get extra points because on my prom day I was in the barber shop, I was at the tailor, I was getting fly, I was not thinking about work. But he was showing off his thesis project, which was to see if this aquaponics system, which I had to Google, I have a couple of Ivy League degrees and was still like, I can't decline these words. But it's essentially this closed filtration system where on the top of it, you can see they're producing crops, right? Edible crops. And so there's algae in the tank, and then there's like a system, fish, algae in particular, that defecate, and the defecation is what feeds the plants, right? So there's a system that feeds it up to the plants on top. And he was trying to see whether or not this system would grow crops at a faster rate than the farm he planted on a portion of the football field. But this boy and students like him literally turned a food forest into a food desert through a creative partnership with Florida International University and JP Morgan Chase, right? At a school that most of us would drive past with the windows up, doors locked. This young man, and you laugh, but I said this young man was shot on his way to school. Same school year, walking to school, shot. Period. Shot on the way to school, but still showed up. In spite of that, still committed to his education. And what I'm saying is that we don't celebrate them. We don't acknowledge them. We don't honor them. And in particular, when we think about our partnerships, we go to the school where everybody feels safe, rather than going where our babies need to be engaged. So the three things that I want to leave you with in terms of thinking about a path forward is, one, the necessity of self-care. I know this work is tiring, exhausting, and it's draining, but it's important for us to take care of ourselves so we can continue to take care of others. So do whatever you can to make sure that you are attending to your own mental health, physical, social, and emotional needs. If you can afford to get a therapist, one of the best things that I've done, period, right? Otherwise, find a circle of friends who you can vent to, who can help you understand that you are not crazy and that your work is needed. The second thing is to center and to support our babies. If you do nothing else but find a way to create a safe space where young people can talk about the things that are going on, you don't have to know all of the answers, but you have to be honest in not knowing everything and being committed to working through things with them. But if you can center them and create safe spaces where they can build community, I don't care what you call it, a wellness circle, a brother's talk, whatever, as long as they feel safe and engaged, it will yield meaningful things. And then the last thing is to be disruptive and to do so with love, right? And so we can do a better job of, one, disrupting the habits that adults have of saying things that are disparaging about our children, right? We can do it in love, like in the way that I sort of push back. We need to get past the binaries. It's something that bothers me as an intersectional Black gay man. It bothers me when people assume that I don't show up in the room, right? So we need to get in the habit of disrupting that. Or when we hear young people say things like no homo or that's retarded, right? Things that if we don't acknowledge and disrupt them, they will continue and will have significant implications in the lives of people. We can do that with love. We can also disrupt the habit of opportunity being predicted by code. Genetic code or zip code. This is where the creative partnerships come into place. If you go to our website while it's still live, do it before January 20th, you can download a toolkit that we produce with the National Black Child Development Institute and faith leaders, right, designed to help them think about how they can leverage faith communities and pulpits to talk about things connected to this, right? What I'm saying is that there are templates, there are people who are engaged in this work that simply need your expertise. So if you do nothing else, take care of yourself and lean in with love. The last thing, if you hear me say nothing else, honoring the spirit of our Aunt Maya Angelou, who says that most of y'all will forget 90% of what I've said. But if I've done my job right, you won't forget how I have made you feel. And I hope, if nothing else, you feel committed to doing that much more for our babies. But on behalf of our president, Barack Hussein Obama, our fabulous First Lady, Michelle Robinson Obama, the whole First family, Sasha Malia, Grandma Robinson, because they do this work. Sonny and Bo too. It's all connected, right? Senator Kennedy gave them the dog. Senator Kennedy dedicated his life to this work, healthcare, education as well. It's all connected. On behalf of all of them, as well as my colleagues throughout the federal government here, when I say thank you. Thank you for not only doing this work, but continuing to do more, even while he who shall not be named occupies that beautiful office. Thank y'all.